Hey everyone, welcome to episode 31 of the Terre's podcast. Today's guest is David Moore from Terre. Terre is one of London's most iconic restaurants. It opened in 1991 and it's been awarded with a Michelin Star since 1993, winning 2 in 1996 and today retaining 1 star. Terre has now spent 27 years in Fitzrovia and Charlotte Street and is regarded as one of London's best fine dining restaurants. We discuss David's journey in the hospitality industry, his time at the Box Tree in Ilkley, how he moved on and spent 5 to 6 years at Raymond Blanc's Le Manoir. In 1991, David and Richard Neat decided to take the plunge and open Terre, and the rest is history, as they say. David is an absolutely brilliant host. I was a guest in his restaurant, but as a podcast guest, he was nothing but generous with his time, didn't really hold back on anything, as you can tell. Be sure to share this episode with all your friends in the hospitality industry. Help us get the word out. And if you could give us a rating and a review on Apple Podcasts, that would be great too. The Terre's podcast is brought to you by Terre's Pure Food Innovation. And to find out more, you can visit us on www.worldofterres.com. David, welcome to the Terre's podcast.
Thank you. Thank you for inviting me.
No, thank you for your time, because I know how esteemed you are.
Well, we've had so much fun getting here.
It has been quite fun. We've just spent 10 minutes laughing about silly things. So,
all of which you have on record, which I hope will be deleted.
Of course. I'm nothing but a professional. So, I'd like to just tell everyone a little bit about you, because there's many that may not know who you are. You are David Moore. You opened Terre in 1991. Before that, you worked for the Box Tree at Ilkley. I love how you're looking at your notes like you better not get it wrong. You worked with the Box Tree in Ilkley and the Le Manoir in Great Milton. You first got your Michelin Star at Terre in 1993. And today you have 1 Michelin Star, 3 AA rosettes. And I'm not sure about the Waitrose Good Food Guide.
I'm not sure either.
Yeah,
no.
Well, we don't need to know. And I'd like to say congratulations to you and your team on maintaining the star for 13 years. Maintaining the star again, but for 13 years you had 2 Michelin stars. So is your goal to get back there?
That is what we are reaching for every day, striving every day. The products we buy, the staff, the training, the investment, everything is to get ourselves back to 2-star. I think we're halfway there. I'd say we are, if you would put a decimal point in between 1 and 2, I think we're 1.5, 1.6.
Yeah.
I also think a lot of Michelin inspectors, when they're reviewing restaurants, they probably put a decimal point there as well.
Oh, really? Okay.
And they'll have a strong meal and they'll say, that's a real solid 1 star, it's 1, or that's over and above. I think that's now 1.2, 1.3.
Yeah.
And then you've got the ones who are knocking on the door. I think we've got a couple of years to go yet.
Can it make a real big difference to a business, having the difference between 1 and 2 stars?
Oh, absolutely.
Really?
Yeah. And if you look at London, we've got, I think, 61 stars in London and maybe 7 2-stars. Don't quote me on that.
Yeah.
It's a handful. You can count them on 2 hands. And I think also for customers travelling into London, you're on their radar. How do you get on their radar as a 1-star? It's through the marketing, it's the networking, it's the hotel, working with the concierges. On a 2-star, you're in the guide, you're on the list, they're coming to London, and if they've got a little bit of money, they don't want to go crazy, so they're going to say, let's go for a 2-star meal while I'm in London, in Barcelona, in New York. So it really does put you on a worldwide radar. Yeah. And I have seen it twice because we've dipped and we've come back. It's about a 40% increase in business.
Wow. It's a big difference, quite significant then.
Yeah, also going from no star to 1 star, about a 25% uplift in business.
Wow. Yeah. So what would you have to sort of do to go from no star to 1 star? Let's have a little look at that first.
Well, so when we opened, the first thing we did was we wrote a letter to Michelin. And I'm not sure that everyone does that.
Okay.
And these days it's just going to be a simple email. But Richard
or
and I...
a tweet.
Yeah, so we're here.
Just let them know.
Yeah. So my first business partner here was Richard Neat. Richard and I had met working together, contemporaries at Le Manoir, Quatre Saisons and Great Milton under Raymond Blanc. And Richard and I were best of friends, and he wanted to open a restaurant and I wanted to open a restaurant. So just that the synergy was there. We met at the right time, and we hatched a plan, and that's how we came to it. And when we first opened, we wrote a letter to Michelin and told them who we were. So Richard had previously worked at, before Le Manoir he'd worked at down near Brighton. It'll come to me.
Yep, halfway through.
They got the restaurant The Pass now, and it's what's it called? Anyway, it was before Le Manoir. Richard had worked in a couple of really good restaurants, and he left Le Manoir to join Joël Robuchon at Jamin in Paris, which was a 3-star. And if we'd have had the San Pellegrino-y 50 top whatever, Robuchon would have been probably the number 1 or number 2 in the world at the time. And it was real killing fields. It was hard. He came back and he was head chef to Marco at Harvey's. Mm-hmm. And from my recollection, his sous chef was Gordon. Mm-hmm. And the junior sous chef was Phil Howard. Mm. And then Gordon went out to Paris, and during that time while he was out in Paris, we got our deal together and we opened Pied à Terre. Ah. But the thing that we did was we wrote to Michelin and we said who Richard was, where he'd worked. I mentioned Box Tree, Manoir, and that we were intending to open a restaurant. And we said from the get-go, our ambition is to have 2 stars. Oh, very, very ambitious and very arrogant.
Yeah.
But we did it.
More front than Selfridges.
We had a lot of fun on the way. It was a lot of hard work.
Oh, I can imagine it didn't just come easily.
Crazy.
So did he ever respond, or is it just like, no, you know they've read it as such, but...
No response.
Well, you probably don't even know they've read it, but at least you put it on their radar, someone's seen it,
yeah.
And they'll look at your sort of almost a track record a little bit, I'm guessing, internally, and that gives them a reason to visit as such, yeah.
I think back then you could have easily fallen between the cracks and not had a visit, because there was no social media, and how did you know about new restaurants? Yeah. And it just seemed to me like the most sensible thing to do is write them a letter.
Yeah.
And also tell them, we're not just here about 1 star, we really, really feel that we can get 2.
How did you end up, because you're from Ireland, so how did you end up in Leeds or Ilkley?
Family was Irish, border town. We had a big bomb in our town in 75 and my mum decided to leave. We landed in Blackpool in 77, went through Blackpool Catering College. And whilst if you asked the 12-year-old David, I was always going to be a chef. Yeah. So I ended up cooking in Blackpool. It was pretty grim.
You answered my question before.
Orange juice was made from powder, and we had...
I read that somewhere earlier. Yeah. How do you make orange juice from powder?
You just open the sachet and add water.
Is that not like a cordial type thing?
No. It was a real thing.
So it's just dehydrated?
Yeah, I think actually, like back in the 60s and 70s, I think people thought it was quite posh to have frozen vegetables and things that were dehydrated and rehydrated. And dehydrated. But in the hotel business, it was a numbers game. We had 120 to cook for breakfast, lunch and dinner, and it was we were working with geriatrics coming on Wallace Arnold coach trips from Glasgow. Halfway through the summer I rang up the college and said this isn't for me. I went back to college and I did a catering. Ended up on a HND, which some snide comment came back once, HND, have no degree. Thank you, pal. Anyway, during that time I ended up going to the Box Tree for my placement. Yeah. And I was there as a commis waiter, runner, 26 weeks, and it was a blast. It was the summer of 85, Lloyd Cole and the Commotions. I was hanging out by the river in the afternoon, and I was working 5 nights a week. I had a great time, and there's such enthusiasm in the restaurant for the produce and the customers, and it was so professional. I'd never seen anything like it.
The Box Tree is one of those places that has just consistently been at a good level for such a long time, hasn't it? I don't think there's been many blips that I can think of. Has there been any?
It's always been a place of note.
Yeah.
And I can't recall who the chefs have been over the years. But I know it's a place that you'll always get a good meal.
Yeah.
But back in the day when I was there, it had 2 stars in Michelin, and they bought the best produce they could get in Yorkshire, and a lot of stuff was coming up from London. I can remember the first time I saw a tray of punnets of wild strawberries, and the pastry chef was just so excited, and wild mushrooms were coming through the back door, and we had somebody come in with we had a local who came in with a pike, and Michael Truelove, the chef, because one of his signature dishes, they did a quenelle of sole, and he made this quenelle of pike, a brochet. And so just the general excitement, and it was in fact
nice? Pike nice?
Well, in that kind of you do it in a crayfish langoustine sort of beast.
Oh, right. You need everything else to bring it along.
Yeah. It is not the tastiest of fish, and as a fish itself, it's really, really bony, and it's a freshwater fish, and it can feel a little bit muddy in taste, but as a brochet in a classic French dish, magnificent.
Oh. So then, what made you? You was only how long were you there for?
I did my placement there for 26 weeks. Went back to college. Before I left the box tree, Michael Truelove came to me and he had a little chat, and he said, "I can see you're interested. You're the only waiter who polishes his shoes." So he said, "Get yourself a job at Le Manoir Saison. It's the best restaurant in the country."
So all you had to do was polish your shoes to get in there.
Well, all I had to do was polish my shoes to get the steer. I didn't even think about it.
Yeah.
And I went back to college and kind of put the idea to the back of my mind. But I opened the caterer one day and there was an advert for assistant head waiter. So I thought, I'll go for that. So a few little white lies on the CV. Nothing any of us have done before. I wrote the letter and got an interview. And the rest is history.
So you and a friend drove down, or did you meet a friend down there? Was it for lunch, and then you had lunch, and then you went for your interview?
Yeah. So I fired up the Opel Kadett. we blasted down from Blackpool. It's like
was that like a 4 or 5 hour drive back then?
Maybe 4 hours.
Yeah.
Down the A34 or something. Yeah. No motorway from Birmingham.
Okay. Yeah, it makes sense.
Yeah. So it was. The Opel Kadett. So we fired up the Opel Kadett, blasted down to Great Milton, got there about 12:15. We'd booked in for lunch. I can remember it was $17.50 for 3 courses, and that was a lot back then. Because putting it into context, when I was at the Box Tree in the summer of '85, I was paid £25 a week for my salary. But back in '85, my salary was £25 a week at the Box Tree, and I was spending $17.50 plus service charge, and water and coffee, whatever else, for a meal at the Manoir. But it was a good investment. So I can remember we sat on table 15 in the main dining room, and at 10 to 3, my pal John got up and went off to take some pictures in the garden, and I called the head waiter over, and I hadn't planned this, it just happened. I called him over and I said, "Could you let Monsieur Desonclos know that his 3 o'clock appointment is here? Could he join me?" So Monsieur Allen comes and he sits with me at the table, and I'm congratulating him on a wonderful lunch, and the food was amazing. But the service, that's what I'm there for. I was talking about the service and all the little details, and how I could see myself fitting in very nicely. And anyway, I didn't speak French, and I didn't really have the right experience. I'd led them to think I was still working at the Box Tree.
Yeah.
And we came to a compromise after about an hour that if I took a position as a chef d'orange, station waiter for a year, he would give me promotion to assistant head waiter.
Okay.
So I really think he never thought I'd stick around.
Yeah. He thought that was a way of getting rid of you as such.
Yeah. I'll come down. And on my very first day, I had no idea how much I was earning. And I remember looking at my rota, and it said 9.5 on it. And I thought, oh, great, I'm on. So I knew I was to start at 9 o'clock. Yeah. And I came in, saw the rota, 9.5. Head waiter came to me just after 3 o'clock, and he said, "Okay, you can go now. See you back at 5 o'clock." And I said, No, I'm on 9 till 5. And he said, No, you start at 9 and you start at 5. Yeah. So I left at 3 o'clock, had an hour and a half break, and came back, and I had that for the whole week, 9.5, 9.5. By the end of the first week, I was broken.
I can see why they probably thought you weren't going to last. So, like, was there like a residence there, where like staff residence or anything?
No,
So
no.
you had to move down there, obviously.
No, I had to move down there. At my very first lodgings, I lodged with a super character. I was lodging with Bruno Lube,
Okay.
the head chef at the hotel at the time, and he's gone on to Bistro Bruno and Grain Store. He's now
in
moved.
Australia now?
He's
Yeah.
moved back to Australia.
Oh, so that's where he was from, is it?
No, he was French.
Oh, okay.
He was. He
Because
was.
he said he moved back to Australia.
He had been in Australia for a few years.
Oh, right.
Came back to the UK.
Yeah.
Did the Zeta Hotel and Grain Store thing, but I think filled his pockets with cash, and he's gone back to live the dream. He wants to have. He's got property out in Brisbane, and he wants to have a farm with a cookery school,
Nice.
and he wants to plough the fields with camels.
Oh, okay.
Camels.
Yeah.
So Bruno was a great friend, and Grain Store was the top of Grayson Road at King's Cross, and I live on Grayson Road. And often I would come home, he had the door code to our apartment block, and he would drop in a box of produce.
Yeah.
And it would come in like 2 or 3 times a year. And I'd say, my wife would contact me and say, it looks like Bruno's left you a box, and it looks like 3 dead rabbits. But everything that he ever left us was absolutely stunning.
Greek person's dream, dead rabbits. Yeah.
Anyway, I got my job at the manoir.
Yeah, that's good.
And life was hard. You had to have a car.
Yeah.
There was very little lodgings anywhere close by.
So you travel then?
Yeah, if anyone knows the area, I was in Charlegrove to begin with, and then Tiddington, this hamlet out towards Tame. Moved into Garsington for a little while, down in Cowley, and then my girlfriend and I bought out in Abingdon. And I bought from a lady in the office an Alpha Sud. And I used to have such fun driving that car over to Abingdon every day, and it was a fast little thing.
Really?
Beauty. The roar of the engine.
If you see me typing, it's 'cause I'm actually Googling your cars. I just looked
Alpha Sud.
So what was it like working in that environment with at such a high level at a young age? Like, so I'm guessing that it would have been a few steps up from somewhere like the Box Tree.
Oh, it was just a whole different level. When I arrived, yes, if I'd have been assistant head waiter, they would have crucified me. All the orders were written in French. I was constantly getting confused, trying to understand what every dish was. I thought all the staff were really big pals of the Smiths. It was just, if you've ever heard, been in a group of French people, they're all Johnny Marr this and Johnny Marr that. That actually it means I'm pissed off.
Oh, right.
But I thought they were talking about Johnny Marr, the lead guitarist of Smiths. But in terms of the work and the work ethic, what they did at the manoir, people came from all over the world to work at the manoir. And the standard was outstanding. I'd never seen anything like it. It just sets you up. It's an apprenticeship. It sets you up having the only thing that you know how to do something is at a really high level.
Yeah.
And that's the only way you know how to do it.
Well, because Raymond Blanc's self-taught, isn't he?
Yep.
And it's pretty amazing how he's running a restaurant at that level back then. Like, self-taught. Like, I think a lot of people see him as a chef now, which he obviously is now, obviously, but then he was self-taught.
Yeah, but he's always been a chef.
Yeah.
He's just had a very inquisitive mind.
Yeah.
And I guess he's had a natural instinct for techniques, and I'm sure he read lots of books and would have looked at recipes. I mean, you can't just pick out, how do you make meringue? Oh, let's put some flour in the blender. No, you have to put egg whites in the blender.
Yeah.
You have to read recipes.
Yeah, he wasn't just going blind. Yeah,
yes.
Yeah.
But I also think he was at the front end of the contemporary style of cooking, of lightness of touch, using the classic French techniques. That I would say the pied-à-terre style of food is informed by Raymond.
Yeah.
Because Richard, my first partner, was very much, a child off Le Manoir and off Raymond, and that lightness of touch that Raymond had, that has informed the 28 years of pied-à-terre, because we've always had the sous chef of the chef of the sous chef of the chef. So it was Tom Aikens had been the sous chef of Richard, although Tom's food was a little bit chunkier. Shane had been the sous chef to Tom. So there'd always been this lightness of touch, and everything comes back to Raymond.
So how long did you spend there in total?
I was there nearly 6 years.
6 years. And did you get to move up in the ranks as well?
Oh yeah, I was a right evil little shit. I was assistant head waiter, and then the guy who I guess taught me the most was a head waiter called Christian. Mm-hmm. I haven't seen Christian since I left Le Manoir. I think he went to work at Girardet. But he was the one who taught me to look at a room in a very different way. You look for the signals, the notes. So if you see a coffee cup on the table, do they have petit fours? If there's an empty bread plate, there needs to be bread offered. And if they don't want bread, then you take away the side plate. So all the staff then know that they don't want any more bread. And he would walk through the room and he would stop me and he'd say, looking at me, not looking at the room, he'd say, table 10, petit fours, 14 and 16, what's going on with their bread? I think you're late on the main course on 20, and blah, blah, blah. And I go, how have you seen that?
Yeah.
But he would talk me through that, and I do that now with my guys here. I got Swally, a lovely young Italian guy, and I'm telling him, you've just come back through the restaurant and you've not looked at a single table or picked a single thing up. Every moment that you come through, walk back, you're looking and checking. Table 2, table 3, table 4, pour water, clear this, check that. And then I will stop him in the middle of the service and I'll say to him, tell me about the room. And he has to be able to walk me through without looking.
What he just did.
Tell me what's happening on each table.
So it's almost like a light touch every now and then, just constantly light touch, yeah. Not overbearing.
It's a little bit like a snooker player who's obviously, I'm an amazing snooker player. But a snooker player is looking at 3, 4, 5 shots down the line.
Yeah.
And that's what we're always having to do, and we're always having to reassess that. So, you take your next shot, which might be serving table 4's main course, and whilst you've done that, you've just checked the next table's ready to clear, so you're not going to go back empty-handed. But after that, you're going to say to yourself, I need to reset that table, I need to call that next dish, and at the same time, you think, okay, over there, I need to go there. And of course, at any given moment, a hand can go up, and everything's got to be dropped, and you've got to go see the customer.
Yeah, it makes sense.
So that's kind of like the takeaway from the Manoir was just that level of professionalism, that level of observation, and as I always say, it's working with your head and not your legs.
Yeah. And what made you sort of move on from Le Manoir?
Moving on from the Manoir was, it had always been in my mind that I would work for myself, which was something that my father had always drilled into me. I don't think he'd be unhappy being called a little bit of fools and horses.
Del Boy.
I don't think he'd be unhappy with being called a Del Boy. He was a little bit of a Del Boy. He had a filling station.
Wheeler and dealer type guy.
Yeah, he sold cars. He had a dry cleaners. My mum was the real entrepreneur in the family who built up the hotel business. And they'd always said, work for yourself. If you're going to do those hours, you might as well have the benefit. So I'd always had it in my head that I wanted to do it. I wanted to open a restaurant. And then meeting Richard, seeing that was the way forward. And then he and I hatched that plan that he would go off and work at Robuchon for a year, and I would start to look at how we might finance it. So the reason I had to move on was I was assistant restaurant manager at 23. There was no way I was going to get the same job or the same money anywhere else in the UK.
Yeah.
Look at London in 1990. There was the Gavroche, Templaire, like 3 or 4 restaurants, that's it. I was never going to get in there. I didn't speak French. So I had to open my own place. And my boss, Alain, was never going to retire. And he left when he was 65, about 3 years.
Still fairly young.
About 3 years ago.
Yeah. So fairly young.
Yeah. So I had to do my own thing. That was the only solution. Was let's get out and do this.
Yeah. See, a lot of people think you're crazy to be there working somewhere where they're at the top of their game. To go and then do your own thing, quite risky almost.
I was I was really well paid.
Yeah.
Secure position. But, it didn't tick all the boxes for me. There was that. I wanted to go out and do it, and I guess I didn't have children. I did have a mortgage and negative equity.
I was going to say, did that help? Clearly not.
Yeah. But not having children and not having the worry of being an absent father.
Yeah.
So we hatched the plan, and Richard was off working at Robuchon, and I decided that I was pretty sure the investors for the restaurant were dining at the Manoir. So I used to look at all the London telephone numbers, and the plan was that we wanted to open a restaurant in London. And if we were talking to people that were coming out from London, if I was talking to them, the likelihood is that they might invest. And we also had the benefit of a business expansion scheme at the time, which was government-backed, and it was a big 40% tax incentive. So if you put £10,000 into the restaurant, you get £4,000 back in your first year on your tax.
Okay.
And you also get a capital gains free exit if you exit with a profit, which ours did. We gave them 100% return on 5 years. So the investors were all sat in the restaurant at some stage, and cards were swapped, letters were written.
Did anyone have a problem with you sort of like talking to people like that about your own business, future business?
You mean anyone like Raymond?
Oh yeah, Raymond.
No, it was under the radar for a long
time.
time.
Yeah.
But during the summer, during early '91, Raymond had declared that the Manoir was going to open for Christmas.
Okay.
And this was something that I really, really didn't want to do. I didn't want to work Christmas. And I was meeting with Richard every week, and I said, we've got to do this before Christmas. I want to be out of the Manoir. So then we decided we had to tell Raymond. So we had a meeting with him, and we told him our plan, and he was amazing. He gave me a list of other investors that I hadn't thought of.
Oh, wow.
Out of that came a couple of our biggest shareholders. He also responded well to the offer of being a non-executive director in the business. So he invested and he gave his time. And the deal was I gave 3 months' notice and took no staff from the Manoir.
That's fair.
Yeah. So I left on the 15th of November 1991, and we opened Pied de Terre on the 16th of December 1991.
That's a quick turnaround.
It was, yes, it was.
So when I read that earlier, I assumed it was the year after. That's not.
No.
How did you manage to turn a restaurant around that fast?
We took over a restaurant that needed nothing doing to it.
It was an Indian restaurant, wasn't it?
It was an Indian restaurant. It had tandoori's, but it still had an 8-burner range.
Yeah, so you could work with it.
It had fridges, cold room. We used all the same cutlery, glassware.
Okay.
Even the peach tablecloths. We kept everything, the tables,
That's
the
really
chairs.
interesting.
We kept the phone number.
So even when you got your first Michelin Star, you had all that tablecloth and all the cutlery. Would it all change by that point?
We were buying as and when we had money.
Yeah. So yeah, as it started to trickle in, you was changing.
But
that.
One Star's not about tablecloths and cutlery.
No, of course not. No.
But no, we aspire. I can remember one of our regulars. We just bought some Villeroy and Boch glasses, and he was coming in. He's buying nice wine, and he was always bitching about the glassware. His name's Mark Taylor. He won't mind me saying that. And we bought these really lovely glasses, and he celebrated by buying like one of the most expensive bottles of wine we had on the wine list. And he says, at last you got some decent glassware. So it was bit by bit. Yeah. We would get things as and when we could afford them.
Yeah.
Sometimes we bought them even when we couldn't afford them.
Yeah. Credit cards. So you opened in 1991. Obviously we know why you opened it, but how did you choose the name and the location? Was the location just, oh look, there it is? Or?
Two different stories. The name came about through Richard and I having a couple of very late nights drinking and just really brainstorming over it. We had lots of Francophile ideas based in things from the Fauvists, from the Impressionists. But the word Pied de Terre, when we looked into it, it just felt the right name because it means it means a foot in the ground. Mm-hmm. You have a foot in the ground, and it tends to be used for an apartment that is a small apartment, not a first home. And it goes back also to Georgian times when a gentleman, if he said he had a pied de terre, that was where he kept his mistress.
All right.
Which in French they had another word called garçonnière, which was a little bit stronger. It wasn't as discreet.
All right.
So garçonnière was one I can't remember all of them. There's about 15 different names. We whittled it down to pied de terre, and looking at the dictionary, kind of like it said small place in town.
Yeah. Okay. That's
and we're everyone's small place in town.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What was it called before?
This site was called Jamdani, Indian restaurant.
Has a ring to it.
It was part of the Red Fort group,
Yeah.
and he had gone into liquidation, and one of our directors was a solicitor in liquidation, and it came across his desk, and he said if we moved quickly, he could secure us a site with the liquidators.
So back then, did you have to buy the lease?
Yes, we signed a 17 years unexpired 20-year lease. We didn't actually give guarantees, but we had to pay nearly all the money that we had went on securing the lease.
Yeah.
And we also had offices upstairs. We threw the office kit out and we put beds in. So Richard and I moved in. He was on the second floor, I was on the third floor. And
now it's all restaurant and an office now.
It's all restaurant, it's all commercial.
So, it's all commercial.
Yeah.
And how long did Richard stay for?
91 through to May 96.
Oh, okay.
So we got the second Michelin Star in January of 96, and he was going out with Sophie at the time, and they wanted to have a different life together. They wanted to have a life that didn't involve him chopping chicken bones at 7 o'clock in the morning.
So it makes sense.
Yeah, and he said that he'd gotten what he wanted in life, which was 2 stars.
Where's he based now?
He's based in Costa Rica.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, living the dream. But the anecdote, there's a nice story, is that when he came to me to tell me this, that he was going to leave, and like my heart sank, and I thought, oh my word, what am I going to do? And I was saying, well, what are you going to do? You're giving up cooking. Yeah, I don't want to be a chef anymore. I want to be a photographer.
Oh, wow.
And my heart even sank further, and I thought, oh fuck. Can I say oh fuck on a pod?
Yeah, you did.
Okay,
yes.
good. I said, oh fuck, I shouldn't have bought him that camera.
That was your
I
fault.
bought him the camera the year before for Christmas. I should have bought him a fishing rod or a kite, something.
Or a cleaver to carry on cutting chickens. Yeah.
Yes, there you go. Some sort of like multi-knived piece of kit.
So those sort of 5 years that he was around, I'm guessing, were quite stable. You were front of house, essentially back end, and he was obviously not.
There was nothing stable about working with Richard.
Okay.
No.
Well, yeah.
And when we met recently, he said, "Oh, do you know what? I'm bipolar."
Oh,
and I said, "What? No shit."
you knew, but didn't know.
Well, no, there was. He was a man of exacting standards, and little things would get him, like a waiter who would be wearing white socks, and he would sack a waiter who was wearing white socks, and I would say, "But if you sack him now, I have to carry the trays, take the orders, welcome the customers, carry the trays, take the orders," and he would say, "It's just disrespect. He's wearing white socks. It's disrespectful. Anyone who wears white socks is not working in my restaurant."
Did you ever remind him of this when he told you that he had bipolar?
He told me that we had a reunion in 2016, which was our 25th anniversary, and Richard came back to work his magic in the kitchen and rattle the pots and pans for a week. We had an amazing week. It was great. It was really, really great. And he was quite ambitious in what he wanted to deliver in terms of dishes. We had 17 dishes for every table. So if you were a table of 2, you always got a separate. You never got like 2 langoustines. You'd have a langoustine and a rabbit offal. You'd have it was always.
Was there any South American influence this time around, or not?
No,
really?
No, not really. No, I think his heart is definitely set in French technique, and I think probably if you go out to Costa Rica, you're gonna see things that are different because that's the produce he has.
Yeah, and do you think, like, just looking back at the 80s and 90s? Was everyone's aspiration to be French? Was that where it's at? Not to be French personally, but the cookery, the cuisine, is that where it's at?
If we look at who were the contemporaries, the Gary Hollyheads, the David Cavaliers, who else? They were names that were quite high profile at the time. Everyone was looking at French technique, and it was all quite classic as well. It was quite classic and not that creative, but Richard's food was very creative. And if I showed you some pictures of his food from '92, you would think it's off now. It's off really? The time. Yeah, I mean, he was
ahead of his game
massively.
So there wasn't many sort of like Spanish restaurants, Italian restaurants at the top of their game back then. I'm guessing there was lots of them, but you wouldn't have seen
any.
No.
Any.
Oh, really?
If you look at the
there
Michelin,
wasn't any good quality, or there wasn't any.
Well, there was probably here on Charlotte Street. Navarro's has been here forever and a day.
Yeah.
Still doing what they do, but there wasn't like Pacific Rim. There wasn't Asian. There wasn't a rocker. Can you imagine London without a rocker?
Yeah.
There was none of that. None of it. So I have actually got a copy of the 91 guide, and I think there were 3 1-stars in hotels, and from recollection I'm going to say Claridge's, Connaught and Savoy. There was the Gavroche on 3-star. There was a restaurant called Sutherland's on Lexington Street, a restaurant of note 1-star. Harlequin, Christian Delte, and Suntory, Japanese, only one in the Michelin. So I think it was like 6 1-star, 6 Michelin star, not just the Tontclair, 7 Michelin starred restaurants in London in 91.
Wow. And aside from the Japanese one, I'm guessing the majority of those that you just listed were French.
Of course, all the hotels were classic.
Yeah. There was no way they were doing anything else.
No.
Like, wow.
There was no ceviche.
No, definitely.
Can you imagine going to a restaurant now and not see a ceviche?
No, it was beef tartar back then.
Probably a tartar, yeah.
It's amazing how...
Tornado Rossini.
Yeah, it's amazing how the industry, in London especially, the hospitality industry has changed massively, really. Because I'm guessing back then as well, if you wanted good Chinese food, you went to Chinatown. But nowadays, you don't really. You just go anywhere.
Yeah, Chinatown is still a hook. But I think back in the early 90s, we had Zen, which seemed to sort of have 4 or 5 places. They were in Hampstead, they were in central London, they were in some of the suburbs. There was obviously an appetite for that type of food, and they were doing it really well. But there were no Wagamamas, nothing. There was no Mexican. You can't imagine just how barren it was.
Yeah, I can imagine. It's so different. And you're quite lucky you got Roco across the street.
Did you say lucky? It hoovers up hundreds of customers every day.
Actually, yeah.
But when we opened here on Charlotte Street back in 91, the street had a lot of restaurants. And I remember I came into town to see the site with the guys from the receivers, and we had dinner in the restaurant. I walked up and down the street. There was Greek tavernas, Animos, Kebab House, Andrea's. It was Indian restaurants, but not just Indian, but Bangladeshi restaurants mostly. So it was quite the sort of the lowest of the lower. That would have probably been led by a big student community. Yeah. So it was very, very different.
So it's quite risky to sort of come and plonk yourself here then in some
We were in the centre of London.
Yeah. So that's what mattered.
Yeah, and we had previously been looking at a site over in Kensington behind Barker's store, a restaurant called, I think it was L'Escargot d'Or, the Golden Snail. Would have been a bloody disaster, and that we had to drop legals on that. It was the only site we'd seen in 2 years of searching that I think number one that we could afford, and was central. It might have been we might have been a huge hit there.
Back then, were you dealing with like a company like David Coffer Lyons, something like that back then for property?
All of them, yes, but everything was by fax.
Yeah,
there was landlines and letters. Nothing was ever you get an email at 8 o'clock in the morning and you'd be there at 9:30.
Yeah.
No, none of that.
No.
And we only had Mondays as well because I was working and Richard was as well. And we also on Mondays would be doing shareholder lunches and dinners. So we would go to prospective shareholders' homes and host a meal where we would cook for them. And they would bring it. I mean, it was just a jolly for them. They would say, "Oh, I've got 2 or 3 prospects."
They're just showing their friends.
Yeah. So we would cook a dinner for 10. Might be guys from Casanova, might be Lloyd people. But we were working all the angles.
Yeah. We've got to, haven't we?
Yeah.
Yeah. What is it they say? Beg, borrow, and steal.
Absolutely. And we did.
Yeah. And your investors back then, I don't know if they're still the same ones, unless it's all changed now, but were they happy with the progress?
Oh, everyone was thrilled to be associated with the restaurant. We were a high-profile opening. We opened the same week as the Square. Square and Pied à Terre were both featured in January by Jonathan Meades in the Times. We were both highly rated. New kids on the block. Shareholders, some of the smallest shareholders would come in and say, "Can I introduce you to my head waiter, David?" And they'd be quite proprietary.
Yeah.
Taking ownership of the restaurant.
Yeah. Was that a bit weird, or was that?
And Richard would get upset about it, and I said, "No, they've given us the money, and we've got the restaurant.
They always want to come in and have their space.
If they want to say that it's their restaurant, let them say it. I don't care." But Richard would get knocked by it.
He would have preferred it if they were more silent, let's say. Yeah. So the investors were mostly sort of restaurant based, or a bit of everything?
No. There were no restaurateurs. They were all ex-customers from the manoir.
Okay.
So no, we
Well
had
to do.
yes,
Yeah.
the list. We did have guys from Casanova, and we had people from the Lloyd's syndicate. Most of them didn't invest because of troubles at mill with Lloyd's. A lot of private individuals who were in different businesses. We had a big American family who invested heavily. They were my largest shareholder. Richard Hamilton, the artist, he was a huge supporter. We had people. We had on the list the Max Mosleys, Max Mosley, Bernie Eccleston, Lord Lichfield, Rothschild family.
I suppose, it's a lot of money that you needed to get, but then today, if you was to do it today, you'd probably have to go down the same route in some respects, because it'd be even more expensive.
It is more expensive, yeah.
Even pound for pound, like with
inflation. You have to have if anyone comes to me for consultancy and they tell me what their budget is, I said, you have to have at least £1 million to do what you're talking about doing, to have a 50 to 60 cover restaurant with, say, 3,000 square feet in London. If you're going to go into a shell, you're going to need 600,000 to 700,000 to fit out.
Yeah, designer shop.
You need to bring in staff and be able to pay them. You need headroom. Yeah, we opened with less than 200,000.
What would that be in today's money?
I've got no idea.
No.
What's the
Well, 1991-ish. So
30 years ago.
Yeah, it's got to be what? It's got to be near 800-ish, 700.
Is it?
Probably not. Way off.
I don't know.
Yeah, I was only a young pup.
There's probably a website that can do that for us.
Yeah,
You can find out. Yeah.
We'll have a look later.
You can drop that into the feed.
So, in 2004, you had a fire, and tell us a little bit about that. How stressful was that for you?
I was in a winery I was down in Burgundy. I was at Herestein in the cellar, and they couldn't believe that my phone was ringing because they never get reception.
All right.
And my little Nokia rang at 8:30 in the morning, and it was I think it must have been Shane saying he's just heard that there's 3 fire engines outside Pied de Terre and that the road's been closed off. And I said, I'm on my way. I'll be there. So I got back late afternoon. I was driven up to Dijon, jumped on the TGV to Paris, and then in on the Eurostar. There was one thing that I knew would screw us, and that was the intruder alarm on. And we had some members of staff who had lapses on exiting the business. Lapses on exiting the property in the evening. I mean, 1 or 2 people who had trouble setting the intruder alarm or just forgetting to set it. And I remember I rang Joseph, who was one of the head waiters, Joseph Atundi. What a great name. And I said, Joseph, please just tell me the truth. If you didn't put it on, I just need to know you didn't put it on. Was the alarm on last night? Yes, boss. No problem. Alarm was on. I go, phew, thank God for that. Anyway, so that was the one warranty that would have voided the insurance. No intruder alarm. What then happened was, transpired that the intruder alarm was faulty. And they thought we hadn't put the alarm on because we never got a phone call. When the fire brigade went through the front door and smashed through the door and activated all the sensors, there should have been an intruder alarm and a confirmed response with the police. Didn't happen. There had been some glitch in the control room. Very odd. Strange things at work.
Yeah.
But that just gave us another scare, and we had to work through that.
Was it like a complete write-off, but every floor, or?
No. So if you walked in on the ground floor, it was a bit damp. You could smell the water. You could see the water coming down the walls. There were quite a lot of nice pop art prints that had to come off the wall quickly, and we had some water damage to them. As you went up the stairs, second floor looked completely habitable. There was no problem at all. First and second floor. Then you get to the third floor and the roof is gone, and you're standing on the third floor looking out at the sky. And there's at the hot spot, the seat of the fire, there's a hole you can see down into the second floor. But this is an old building, 1873 townhouse, and it was built with a thing called a Bessemer beam. Bessemer beam is basically a tree that is carved down. It's about 20 inches square, and it goes through the ground at the ground floor level, supports the whole building. And Camden Council sent in a safety officer to look at it, and he said he thought that it had moved, and that in his opinion, a dangerous buildings order had to be issued. So at about 11:30 in the morning, it became a dangerous building.
No one was allowed in. Well, except for...
Yes, yeah, under tight supervision, and we had to have...
Did that have to come out in the end? Put an RSJ in, or could you not do that?
The building was torn down.
Oh, okay. So this is a completely new building.
Torn down.
Right, okay.
The only thing that remains the same is the front wall and the back wall.
Oh, okay.
And we dug down, took advantage of the situation, new drains, so we don't have any of those issues that a lot of restaurants have.
Yeah.
But brand new drains. We took a little bit of headroom as well in the basement, and we have a steel frame. So we also couldn't... We had 18 months indemnity on the insurance, so we had to make sure that we were back in time not to... Actually, no. I think we had 12 months indemnity on the insurance. Yeah. One of the insurance issues was that we had quite a short indemnity, only 12 months. We had to get the restaurant back within 12 months. Nowadays, I'm always insuring for 24. We couldn't guarantee to get party wall in place within 12 months. So the engineers came up with a scheme where they sunk this huge beam about 1.5 meters into the basement floor, and then set in concrete, and there's a box frame that goes up and the joists float out. We don't touch either 32 or 36. We float in the middle.
So it looks like you're touching, you're floating.
We're floating.
So the bricks may touch a little bit.
No, the bricks didn't need to be...
facade, yeah.
Because that hadn't changed.
Oh, yes, of course, yes.
Didn't need any permissions on that. So it was a feat of engineering, and we also knew that we would run out of money personally because of the underinsurance issue, which we could talk about later. But
so how comes was it the broker or was it the insurance company that sort of underinsured you, or was it the broker that underinsured you with his advice?
It was the advice from the broker. Yeah. There were a couple of things. One was that we could have been on a different policy with a natural uplift, and that is called a declaration policy, whereby every year you have at the end of the year you have a little reassessment of numbers, and you might pay a little bit more premium for that comfort, but you can have about a 1/3 uplift.
Yeah.
If we'd have been on that, we'd have been fine. So I think we had a 31% underinsurance, and in knowing that we had a 2-star Michelin, we got it back with Shane in 2003. The restaurant was flying, and you can't come back and expect to keep 2 stars with a completely new team. So we had the insurance, we had the money in the bank, so we decided to keep as many of the senior people on as we could. But with underinsurance, you have to contribute to get the insured money. So for every £10,000 of business interruption, we had to put 3,100 in to get the 6,900. If you don't have the money to match with the insurers won't pay out.
Oh, I see.
So we had money in the bank. We've been very careful not to divvy everything up and clear out the bank account. And we were able to pay the wages until October. And we opened on the 26th of September.
Wow.
So we did it. It was touch and go.
I bet you needed a holiday after that.
Actually, I'd been on holiday. I'd never had so much time off. My badminton game was great.
Yeah.
I was going to the gym 3-4 times a week. I was having badminton lessons twice a week, improving my swimming. All the team had opportunities to go. So we sent some guys to Arzac. We had Matthew, the manager. He was working at the Square. He was working at Chez Bruce, helping out at Ledbury. I don't think Ledbury's open then.
Lots of stages then.
Yeah, lots of stages. Kids, and when all the staff came back together, it was really interesting because we had lots of 3 or 4 cooks in the kitchen, senior guys, who were coming back with new experiences.
Do you think it made everyone better for that then?
Absolutely. Yeah.
And then, did it get cleaned up quickly, or was it resolving everything with the insurance company, or?
So the insurance company were great. They paid out. They accepted liability 6 weeks after the fire, which was a little bit tricky. Those 6 weeks we had no idea if we were going to be covered or not. But they were good, and it was then there was issues with the broker,
So it was
and
the broker.
that went into litigation. Went into litigation, and we took them to court, and they settled on the steps.
Oh, okay. Even better.
It wasn't actually on. They settled
I know
before
what
we
you
got
mean.
to court.
Yeah.
Yeah. It wasn't actually on the steps, but it was a couple of weeks before. We had the court date.
That would have been a movie ending,
and,
wouldn't it?
and everybody knew that we were heading towards court.
In the last 30 years or so, give or take, 28, how do you manage to sort of keep going, evolving with the times? Obviously, London has changed massively. All of England has in 30 years. So what sort of things have you done? What notable sort of like time? What notable dates can you think of in your timeline where it was tricky or you had to do something different? Or
I think no more current than right now.
Yeah.
I think right now is probably the trickiest time that we've had. It's the spectre of Brexit, the lack of consumer confidence, so many dining choices. We're not a cheap option. I think we offer value for money, but we also only buy the best produce, which is, if you have our lamb, you have our halibut, you have whatever products it is on the plate, they are the best you can buy. We can't do cheap food. But it has been very tricky, and I think like one of our initiatives that has borne fruit has been vegan menu.
Yeah.
For about a year now, year and a half, we've had a very solid vegan tasting menu. I think also the fact that we're very open to menus for different people on the same table. A lot of restaurants will say it's the same menu for everybody. So if you've got a vegan amongst you, you can't go there. Or else everybody has to have the vegan menu, so 3 omnivores. They might like that idea, but we're the restaurant where you can come to and you can say, Mum and Dad want to be omnivores. They've got 3 siblings there. One's vegan, one's celiac, and one's pescatarian. And we're happy to do a tasty menu for everybody.
Yeah.
So that has been very, very good for us. It's been keeping the restaurant busy. And on some evenings I look around and over half of the restaurant are on a vegan tasting menu.
Oh, really? It's a big thing, isn't it?
It is, yeah. It's not a thing. It's here to stay.
You think?
Yeah, people say, what do you think of this trend? It's not a trend.
Yeah, I think veganism probably isn't a trend. You're always going to have some people that want to eat less meat or no meat. I get that, but I don't know. I think some people will always dip in and out. I think they see there is some evidence that suggests that some vegetarians do dip in and out every now and then, but vegans slightly different, I think. Yeah.
I would say again, of the half of the restaurant that are vegans, so probably half of them, again, are not actual vegans. They're coming to have a vegan experience in a restaurant that's got clever food.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah.
I'm going to take a champagne break and fill my glass.
Go for it.
I'll be quick. Ooh.
David just stopped for a quick champagne break.
Has to be done. It's Fizzy Friday.
Fizzy Friday. I love the idea of this Fizzy Friday. So, you've been in London a long time, and you're quite... you know your way around property, let's put it like that. But how is it sort of looking in London at the moment with rent and rates? They seem to be quite high, rates especially. I was chatting to someone earlier today and they said that usually you get a 5-year period for the rates, and I think this time you only got like a 2-year period. So, how do you see that all working out?
London is a very expensive place to operate. It's tricky. Landlords are pressing. Even my landlord at the moment, who is a private individual, do they need an uplift in rent? No. Is it going to affect their life? No. Do they want to rise? Yes. Even in this current market where you're looking at restaurant closures, the high street, my landlord is being greedy, I think, and asking for a rise when there shouldn't be one. But we're talking about that. But then the rates, don't get me started on business rates. The whole concept is skewed. It's wrong. Why should I be paying £60,000 to trade in this building? Why? What's the sense of it?
Yeah.
What am I getting for it? What's anyone getting for it? I know that it's one of the biggest business rates are one of the biggest revenue earners for the government.
24 billion a year, I was told.
There's a house down the street. I think it's probably the last individual privately owned home on Charlotte Street, worth about £8 million. They pay £4,000 council tax, and they get their rubbish collected for that. I don't get sweet FA for my 60 grand, just the right to operate.
Yeah.
£60,000.
Bit of a racket, isn't it?
Do you know what? I'm pretty sure the Amazon warehouse out in Milton Keynes, pays less business rates on its warehouse than we do.
I was chatting to someone today, and they said exactly that. They said that basically the system's just broken because, they're not calculating what Amazon, should be paying, out of all these big sort of factory type, industrial units. And they were saying, something needs to change where it could be shared in a different way proportionately, because at the moment it's just food retail and restaurants that are taking the hit.
But anybody who has a property, why do you, if you're lucky enough to be able to operate out of a garage and you've got stock coming in and out and you can do that, that's great. But you're actually skewing the industry against innovation and investment, because we have to invest in property to operate a restaurant.
Yeah.
And we employ 30 people, 30 homes and families fed through this business.
Yeah.
If we had the American style system where it's a sales tax.
Yeah.
I remember the first time I went to New York, and I was probably buying a pair of Levi's or something, and it's a $30 ticket on the tab, and you take it up, and
plus
they say
X%.
And they say that's $38.75, and you go, what? And they explain it's sales tax. You've got a state and you've got a local, or you've got a government and a local, but you usually have two sales tax. So perhaps VAT could be trimmed back a bit.
To make way for something else, you mean?
Yeah, and we could have something. The government are never going to trim anything back.
No, I was going to say.
They're absolute bastards. I mean, they never even helped us. They never even helped us during the recession, when in Europe, Germany and France, they were having their VAT in restaurant food reduced to 5%.
Yeah.
We never got any help on that front.
Well, we got down to 17 for a little while. That was it. Yeah.
Did we?
Yeah, I think Gordon Brown dropped it 3%, 2.5%, 17.5 for about, was it 2 years or something? Yeah.
I've forgotten that.
Yeah. But
Selective memory.
No, again, I think, but that's something that we can do over here, and the government won't do it. The government won't do it.
And they cite things like it's unfair, it's against European law.
Well, it's not. No,
it's not. No, they just didn't want to do it.
Yeah.
Didn't want to help us.
Yeah, apparently we're allowed 3 different VAT bans, and we just use one. I think we don't use one. That's strictly not true. But I think with food,
we have something on insurance. It's like a 5% or something, and then we have.
Yeah, something's got to change though. I think you can't carry on like this. But you were saying last time I was here, and I think I told you as well, that last time when I came to meet you, there was just so many properties that were empty in London, which is a big surprise, because I think I've always thought that was like the beginning of a recession almost, that when you see properties that are empty in London, that's a sign that something's not right.
We are going to slide into recession. I think we've only just missed it by 0.01 or something on the last counting.
Yeah.
But it's going to happen. It's just appalling. The whole business rate things, it needs changing.
Yeah.
We can carry on saying it needs changing, but actually somebody has to stand up and do something about it.
Well, until Brexit's done, no one's doing anything.
No.
So I think give it a couple of years for that to settle, and then maybe someone will start looking at it. But
and the local council charged me that 60,000. I still have to pay for every single bag of rubbish, £1.20, for £1.20 to £1.50 a bag, for every single bag of rubbish that goes out on the street. And if we run out of those prepaid bags and put something out in a black sack, I'll get a £90 fly tipping fine.
Oh, really?
It's cruel. I'm checking my rubbish every night. You've got the right bag. It's just the council.
So is it pink bags or something?
There's pink and there's different companies that we use for different products.
Okay.
So we've got the mixed recycling, the glass recycling.
I never realised that was all prepaid. I had no idea.
Yeah, you buy a roll of bags.
What a racket.
And for your cardboard, you have this roll of stickers. And I've seen like a kitchen porter take the roll of stickers and wrap it around. I know! Because you only need one little 6-inch piece of sticker. Then you finish it with parcel tape. And you get the stupid kitchen porter who will put a purple bag inside a purple bag to give it double strength. No. Put a black bag on the inside. And they just can't seem to get it in their head.
Because it's not that it's hard, but it's just something you don't think of. That's why. I think,
because they're not paying for it.
Yeah. Well, it's not just that, but I think no one's used to it. At home, you take the rubbish out. You just take the rubbish out. And I think that, but like you say, it's just the system that's broken in a way, isn't it?
Yeah.
And something needs to change. And, we're going to start I do wonder what's going to happen with the hospitality industry, because obviously you saw the news with Pizza Express, and it's going to go through a tough time. And I think
the other pizza company, what's the one? Prezzo.
Yeah, I saw that.
Prezzo,
25% down.
They've already had 100 closures, I think, under the CVA.
Wow.
There was so many openings, but at one stage, I guess they must have been all very busy.
Yeah.
And it's consumer confidence and spending.
It's a bit of everything, I think. I think if we look at like Pizza Express, I think that one of the biggest mistakes they probably did is all these 2-for-1s constantly, and I think people got so used to it that they never went in when it was just 1-for-1. Like it was just like, but it's not good value.
We have to distance ourselves from discounting.
Yeah, and again, it all depends where you are and what you are. But I think that obviously something like Pierre Terre wouldn't do something like that, obviously. But I think that you can see why they've had to do it. But there's so many more food restaurants now; they're everywhere.
We do offers, but we try to
different ones.
We're trying to keep it. We have to value engineer.
Yeah,
I can't give food away. I can't give £100 menu for 70 without engineering value and making sure that I make my margin.
Yeah.
But if you go to our website www. And sign up to the newsletter, you will get a monthly offer that is in some way incentivizing you as a subscriber to come back to the restaurant on favourable terms.
Yeah, that makes sense. And over the years, you've dealt with quite a few sort of head chefs, and being not a head chef yourself, like, or at least from chefing background, like how tricky has that been over the years? Would you say?
It's
how many is it? 1, 2, 3, 6 is it? 6.
Yeah, Richard Neat, Tom Aikens, Shane Osborne, Marcus Eves, Andy McFadden, and Nassim Makis now currently.
Current chef.
Well, the restaurant has always given them the opportunity to get what they want, which is the Michelin Star.
Yeah.
They've always been very well paid, top price. Some have had varying levels of shareholding in the business, so they could see a nice wedge from the bottom end. So when we're making a profit, they're getting dividend checks coming through. That kind of like encourages them to have the right amount of chefs in the kitchen, keep the costs down, look at the food margins. So what's been the trickiest thing? Or?
What sort of things would you say have been tricky over the years, like dealing with chefs? Something that you've had to learn.
Well, I guess it's...
Well, obviously one was bipolar. So...
Tom and I didn't get on that well. I was probably going to exit the business, but then he exited. Shane was great to work with. He was a very level-headed, very strong character in the kitchen. That was, I would say, probably working with Shane was the golden era.
Yeah.
We had the 1 star, and we came back and we got the 2nd star. He also went through the fire with us as well. But then he wanted to move on. It's managing their expectations of salaries, and there's always a lot of ego as well. But the restaurant has given them, Pierre Terre has given them what it is that they've wanted.
Yeah.
And they don't all go on to do Michelin starred food, but they've wanted to be Michelin starred chefs.
Yeah.
And they've had it, and they've got the accreditation, they've got the T-shirt through working at Pierre Terre and delivering it for me and for our customers.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting because I think there is a lot of ego attached to chefs. Not all chefs, but some chefs. And I think that it's difficult managing that, isn't it?
Yeah.
I
had one or two have said to me, this won't happen in my kitchen. And I said to them, I think you'll find it's actually my kitchen.
Yeah.
But I'm not saying who said that.
Steer away from that one. So would you say that Asimakis is he's here for a few years now?
Asimakis is with the company nearly 10 years.
Yes, because he was...
he started as a commis chef.
Yeah.
And he worked his way through the ranks. And I made him sous chef under Marcus Eves.
Yeah. But he also worked at...
Le Tripier?
Yeah, that's it. Yeah,
he did. At one stage, I sent him over there to help sort out some problems we were having, and I wanted him to become head chef there. We were also just about to... It was bizarre. We had the designer in the very same day that we started talking to Simon Rogan. So I had the plan had been for Blandford Street to do a refit and to put a new concept in there the concept was going to be based on Asimakis and the food he wanted to cook. And it was going to be a completely new name. It had to have a name change. It had to have a freshen up.
Yeah.
It had been there for 10 years, and the area had changed around us, and we had serious competition from Comptoir, Blandford Comptoir, Farouz, the Lebanese restaurant next door was amazing.
Yeah.
But then we had places like Chiltern Street, Firehouse, which took away a lot of my high-end customers who just started dining there. We had the Ivy around the corner. We had a lot of competition in the area, and we hadn't freshened up and we hadn't changed what we were doing. The very same day, Simon walks through the door and starts talking to me about wanting to get it back into Marylebone and was it on the market, and so that all played out and we sold it to him. I was very happy to do that. And then
so you wasn't sentimental then?
No.
You don't strike me as the sentimental type.
I do miss the restaurant.
Yeah.
I did love being able to sit outside Blandford Street, have a little glass of Prosecco and watch the world go by, and we had a really successful business there. We made money 8 years out of 9.
Yeah, it's not too bad.
Yeah, and we had a Michelin Star for 9 years. And we did very well exiting.
So how do you get on with staff shortages at the moment? Is it an issue?
We're blessed in one way, but it's the London scene is tricky. So we're blessed in that we've got a head chef who's Greek. He's a young, kind of like funky kid, and he's got the Michelin Star. The rest, the kitchen is full of Greeks. Stelios, Sturgios, Sakis. Christina is our pastry chef. Effie on Garde Manger. Yanis. Have I said Sterios already?
Probably, although that's a stereotypical name. But yeah.
The kitchen is full of Greeks.
You haven't said Stavros, which
No, there's no Stavros.
There's
There's no Stavros, no.
Yeah.
The kitchen is full of Greeks.
Yeah.
So if you've got a young Greek kid coming over to London, he hears that there's a Michelin starred restaurant.
Yeah, they
with a
migrate here.
Yeah. We get the CVs coming through all the time.
So in some ways, it's like it's like in the 70s when the French lads were going to the Brew Brothers and everything.
Yeah.
They migrate to where they know they'll feel comfortable.
Yeah, where they've got a little bit of language skill.
Yeah.
But trying to replace a kitchen porter, if anybody out there is looking for a full-time kitchen porter job, give me a call or an email, David at Pied.
So why is that so hard to find, would you say?
It's down to Brexit, and it's down to bad planning and thought on Theresa May's part.
Yeah.
So I often have this little joke with my wife and my friends. I said, Theresa, just give me a call. Call Dave. Say to Dave, I'm thinking of having a general election. Don't do it. I would have told her not to have a general election. I'm planning on anybody who's been here 5 years can stay.
Yeah.
Why? Why 5 years? Why such an arbitrary number?
Yeah.
Why not? Anybody who's here on the last day can stay.
That's a fair point. Well, you probably get a rush, to be fair.
And what's wrong with that?
Yeah, it's a fair point.
What's happened now is the bright kids in France and Spain and Italy, they're thinking, let's go to Germany, I can learn German. But they're not coming to London because...
It's not a language I'd want to learn.
9.
Sorry.
No, 9.
It's such a harsh language.
But if you look at trying to recruit a kitchen porter who's getting £9 an hour plus service charge, it's just impossible to get them.
I suppose everyone else that's got one are keeping them. They're looking after you.
And the runners, the guys who are carrying the trays, we don't get the young professionals anymore coming over and picking up people who are, they've been making coffee, mostly coffee makers with I was going to say barrister training. Barista training.
Yeah.
They're the kids that we're trying to retrain into runners.
Yeah.
It's tricky.
I suppose in some ways it's difficult because someone said to me that British people are imperialistic. They like to be served, not to serve. And I wonder that's why it's so difficult to get people into the hospitality industry.
It is interesting that with the drying up of that fountain of continuous talent and workforce, that I don't know what the government numbers are on the numbers of people who've been coming into the country, but I'm going to say it must be at least half what it used to be 4 years ago. I do now have more English people. I've got a lovely girl who's working as a runner. I've got a young chef who you saw peeling carrots earlier, young English guy. But I've been just very lucky to find this couple. I now have 4 English people working in the business out of 30.
Yeah.
A year ago, I had 1.
Okay. It's interesting. Interesting change.
Where's it going? Will
Yeah.
Brexit happen? My prediction is nothing's going to change.
Okay. You think we're going to stay in?
I think we're going to stay in.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Okay.
I know everyone's saying we have to, but it was a flawed referendum.
I think that, let me have a look. I think that by the time this podcast comes out, we'll know. So I'll text you.
When is this podcast coming out?
It's probably going to be around that date. So
Let's do it on Brexit.
I might even just save it for that day.
Yeah.
You know, because then you'll probably get loads of tweets saying, haha, you're wrong, or haha, you were right. Yeah.
But for me, I just want it to happen. I don't care if it's Brexit with no deal. At the moment, the uncertainty is hurting.
Yeah, it's killing
the business more than a no deal.
I think people are just sick of this
Hearing
bickering. Yeah, like you want to see real news now. Like, well, actually, I probably still don't. But I think you're just sick of the word Brexit. I never really liked the word Brexit in the first place, to be honest. But I think something's got to change. And,
It will.
Yeah, and obviously, Boris was your mayor for a few years, so he's always got like a spark up his bum, hasn't he? He's quite.
But he came into the premiership and he came out with his approach, which I have to commend, because how can you go to Europe and negotiate with your hands behind your back, this shotgun to your head saying you can't have no deal, and of course Europe are just going to stand there and say this is the deal. Yeah. Because they know you can't negotiate. Yeah. You have to have a deal. Yeah. So we have to put the frighteners on them.
Well, yeah, it's like for you, for example, you're negotiating a new location. You're not going to go in there and say, whatever happens, I'm not walking out. Like, they're going to be like, oh, okay, well, this is the rent. Oh, okay.
Yeah, I'll pay that.
I'll pay that. And, you've got to be prepared to say, sorry, chaps, ladies, I'm out of it.
Doesn't work for me.
Yeah. I was listening to another podcast this morning on my way down, and it was saying that when Theresa May was negotiating with her European counterpart, he said they looked that depressed, the water didn't even want to be in the room. But they did say, at least with like Boris, he talks a big talk, but he's very respectful with people when he's with them. Like, so it'll be interesting. Hopefully, we can just, by the time this podcast comes out, we'll know. Yeah, we'll know. We'll know. So,
and they'll all be laughing at me.
Well, you never know. You never know.
We'll see.
But so. With downstairs in the kitchen, Asimakis runs like a very sort of calm kitchen, like no swearing. Do you think that sort of has changed over the years? Do you think the sort of
the atmosphere in the kitchens have had to change? Yeah, because it was quite brutal.
Even in your time, like in the early days, would you say was it more clangy and loud?
We were known as the killing fields at one stage.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I mean Richard Neat was He didn't tolerate any slip-ups.
Oh, really?
And if you did slip up, he reminded you days and days and days after it. I can remember.
Days and days.
Yeah, no, we had this. I can't remember his name. Lovely, lovely guy. He's a great cook, and we had the RoboCoupe on his section, and he was and it was bouncing about a bit. And he turned around to get something out of the walk-in fridge. And he came back just as the RoboCoupe was falling on the floor.
All right. Did he catch it?
No.
Oh.
RoboCoupe dead. Anyway, whatever had been in the RoboCoupe was fine, and he went out that afternoon and he bought a new RoboCoupe for the restaurant.
The head chef or the chef?
No, the guy who's the guy who dropped. Not the guy. He didn't actually drop it. It bounced off his station. Yeah, and I think everybody knew they had to put like a damp towel underneath it to stop it vibrating, and he didn't do it. He went and he bought us a new one.
Okay, that's fair.
And the next day, Richard, what's he call him? He called him RoboCoupe boy.
Yeah, but to be fair, he corrected it.
I know.
Yeah.
And he was calling him RoboCoupe boy, and he says, "What are you going to do this time? What are you going to drop next?" And like 3 days later, what happened a lot was people didn't face up. They just packed their knives away quietly
and just went,
and they didn't come back.
Slipped away.
Yeah. We had chefs who would go to Tesco's and never come back. We did a lot. I'm not naming names. Aidenburn.
So just pop into Tesco. Yeah. Anybody want some fags?
The thing about Richard was he wanted to change his menu every day.
Yeah.
So he would order the things in that the proteins. It might be a bit of calf's liver, some skate or whiting. And then he'd tell the guys like at 10:15 what the garnishes were. So you'd have this exodus from the kitchen, running with petty cash to Tesco's to get whatever it was they needed.
Yeah.
And occasionally they didn't come back. And you can see Richard in the kitchen going, he's going to be in the shit when he gets back.
Yeah, he never came back.
And then at 11:15, he's like, where the fuck is he? 11:15, it's like the realisation is he's not coming back. Yeah. We had this with Tom Aikens as well. We had 3 guys who left a note in the fridge on a Saturday night.
In the fridge?
Yeah. So Tom, I was probably in about 8:30, and Tom was like, oh, such and such and such and such aren't in yet. They're going to be so in this shit today. I'm going to cane them. They're going to be this, they're going to be that. 9 o'clock, 9:30, 9:45, I'm down, probably getting my menu to make sure I've got all the right menu items. And he's like, oh, fuckers, they're still not here. And then about 11:15, he jumps on the section because all of the deliveries are stacked on the fridge, the worktop fridge. And he starts putting stuff away, opens the fridge door, and there's this little letter saying that the 3 of them aren't coming back.
Wow.
Who's in the shit now?
Yeah. I suppose everything has a cost. All that ribbing, making fun, or the aggressiveness, it's sort of like, it takes it out of people, doesn't it?
I think in the heat of the moment, you might think that something is fun or funny, but it isn't.
It needs correcting afterwards, doesn't it? Like
it doesn't happen anymore.
No, that's right. Yeah.
At Pied à Terre, we have the non-swearing thing, and now Akis was. I think we talked about doing it, and then he instantly saw the benefit. Yeah. We had a couple of really lovely girls on pastry, especially a very, very good Muslim pastry chef. I think her name was Sarah. She was with us for a year. She came over on an Erasmus project. If there'd been swearing in the kitchen, she'd have been gone.
Yeah.
If there was any disrespect in the kitchen, she'd have been gone. Because she wouldn't have stood for it. Her values were very different to ours. And we did well because we were able to employ her. And Asimakis has now seen that sort of that tempo, and you've got the heat of the kitchen, but you have to be respectful. Yeah. And people respond to that.
It's weird. Since I've started doing this, the majority of kitchens that I've been in, you can barely tell they're kitchens. If it wasn't for frying pans, you wouldn't know because they're just so calm. I went to Adams in Birmingham, and
somewhere that I really want to go.
Yeah.
If anybody wants to extend an invite, I'll be there.
That's sorted. And he the kitchen was just so calm. So calm, and just.
We're all working. Well, in these sort of kitchens, like Adams and Pied à Terre and wherever it was, the Ledburys of this world, we're all working towards excellence. And the only way we can do that is working as a team. The only way that you as a head chef can progress is by keeping your team. If you're always having to show them the basics because the churn, you've got... At one stage, I would have been employing 3 chefs a week. Any CVs that came through the door, send them an offer letter, because I know I'm going to lose 3 chefs this week.
Yeah. Wow, that's quick.
I'm not saying what chef that was with.
Yeah.
But it was early doors.
Yeah.
So you're always struggling on your technique. You're always struggling to perfect the excellence that you want, because you're still having to teach them how to peel that carrot the way you want them to peel it. Because if you'd have kept the guy from like 9 months ago, he'd be moving on to stocks and sauces, and he'd know that, and he'd be able to show somebody else.
In your years, has there ever been an abundance of chefs? Because someone said to me, there's never actually been an abundance of great.
No.
So the chef shortage isn't technically a shortage, is it?
Nothing new.
No, yeah,
nothing new. Yeah, nothing new.
Yeah.
But I think that we go back to education, schooling, careers, all of which give our industry somewhat of a maligned appearance. You're going to go into catering. Ooh.
Yeah.
As opposed to, you want to be a chef. Great. Too many people are advised to go to university.
Yeah.
I didn't go to university. I mean,
especially the Tony Blair era.
Yeah.
No, it was like everyone should.
Everyone's got the right.
Yeah.
Not everyone wants it.
No.
You know what? You'll make way more money being a plumber,
It's true, yeah.
and you won't have any student debt.
Yeah. I wish my plumber would turn up when I call him, but yeah, he says it's just too busy.
60 quid an hour.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's crazy.
No, and it's so true that now, what the problem is now, though, after 20 odd years of doing this, they now have a shortage of skilled tradespeople.
Yeah.
You know? So, if they just let people naturally fall into what they wanted to do and not cast any,
Oh, not even let them fall into what they're naturally. Show them that there's something else.
Yeah.
If you want to be a tradesperson, you want to work with your hands, you enjoy food, absolutely.
Yeah.
Don't talk to them about getting
Being
into
a solicitor or something.
If you want to be a chef, advise them about the options.
Yeah.
There's contract catering, which is a different lifestyle to restaurants.
Yeah.
Restaurants is a little bit harder, hotels, but they're all very rewarding, and they can be great careers, and money is good. It's no longer a second-rate citizen's sort of career.
Yeah, no, of course. No, you can do very well.
Mm-hmm.
So, you like to focus, or at least you're well known for having a great wine selection.
Yeah.
Aside from drinking lots of champagne on Fizzy Friday. So what would you say, how important is that to a restaurant?
Well, we've always invested in the en primeur, buying in Burgundy. That comes back to, I think it probably comes back to Bruno, who was one of our first sommeliers. And he got us heavily interested in Burgundy, and we bought a lot. And we continue to do. And customers like to come to us because we have back vintages. I think if you look across London and the price points and the vintage, so if you're looking across a couple of 2-star restaurants and you pick something like a Chambon Musigny from Roumier in a particular vintage, we will be the same price.
Yeah.
But you'll be drinking maybe 2004 with us as opposed to 2012 with another restaurant. So we have the back catalogue, and we bring it in as we need it. So you're just getting a better experience.
Yeah. And does it genuinely bring in better customers though as well? Like, is there customers that can afford it that will say, the food it's the same as somewhere else, but they've got better wine? Does that ever sort of happen, do you think? Or
I think we do have some customers who come to us for the wine, for sure.
Yeah.
And they come and they buy the same thing, and they buy it in the next vintage because they know we have it, and we might only get 6 bottles. But I've got one particular customer who likes the Aligotti from Costerie 2009. It's not on the wine list. I know we've got 2 bottles left, and they've been kept for him.
Yeah.
So being small enough, we're able to look after the people who are coming to us for the wine.
Mm.
But the wine business, I mean, it's what, 40% of what we sell is wine. Yeah.
And how have you, like, over the years, have you ever been caught out with like wine theft or like fraud or anything like that? Because it's at that level, it's quite a tricky business, isn't it?
Mm.
I guess now with credit cards, it's probably easier because you've got chip and pin and so on. But
there's 2 sides to it. There's the selling of wine
Yeah.
To fraudulent customers, and we have suffered that. We had a late night call for Cristal, and we had a naive young. We had a call late at night from somebody who was wanting to buy Cristal, and we did a telephone transaction. The person in charge was a little bit naive about the chip and pin process, and when I heard in the morning, I thought, we are screwed. That's gone.
Straight away.
No, it's a telephone confirmation for £8,000 sale, we were screwed.
Wow.
The other issue was, on the very same evening, he called back and asked for another bottle.
All right.
I got the same person, and we sent out a bottle of 1982 Petrus in a taxi, which of course was never going to be paid for either. So we lost about 18,000 on that night.
Oh.
The other issue is what we call shrinkage, and it's to do with internal losses. And I have suffered from a senior member of staff sliding things off the stock take, but
really?
yeah, that has gone into litigation, and it's not something I can talk about.
Well, they're not exactly stealing bread rolls, are they?
No.
Wow. 18 grand in one night.
Yeah. He called back the next day, cheeky bastard, And we got the call, and so we tried to tee him up with a little visit by Mr. Plod.
Yeah.
And the police were, well, there's no crime being committed.
Oh, well.
You've been paid. And I said, I know I've been paid, but it's going to be clawed back when whoever's credit card gets the statement in 6 weeks' time or whatever. They're going to say, I didn't buy that.
What did they say? Call us in 6 weeks, or just nothing? They didn't care.
No, we went through the credit card fraud department. The credit card fraud department contacted the police and said it's definitely fraud.
All right.
And they sent 2 police officers in to meet the taxi driver.
All right.
But they took so long to do everything that he said he was meeting a guy called John who had a red coat outside McDonald's in Ealing.
Yes.
And that he had been the same driver who did the same run the night before.
If it happens today, though, they won't use a cab, they'll use an Uber. Yeah, which means you'll know who booked it.
No, they won't. They'll use a mini cab.
Oh, well,
so yeah. So, I mean, I went to the press on that one and then found out that I think it was Daniel Clifford at Cambridge had also had. Didier Drogba bought a bottle of Petrus. But it wasn't Didier Drogba.
Oh.
And it was delivered, the bottle that he was coming to the restaurant for lunch on the Friday, wanted to have a bottle of nice wine at home on the Thursday, something like this.
The Mecca story.
And they sent out this bottle of like £12,000 bottle of Petrus to a house, and the guy was standing outside the house, who was apparently the personal assistant to Didier, and took delivery of the bottle. He was just standing outside a random house.
A nice house, obviously.
A nice house, that was
fitting into the story.
And then there was up in Wintering Fields, had seen my piece in the press and had stopped a delivery going out of about £10,000 worth of a couple of bottles, high end, and they saw it and they said, that strikes me as very similar to the Pied de Terre thing.
Wow, there's so much you have to consider, isn't there? So much. Sounds like a lot of stress.
You have to have good wine. You have to have interesting wine. You have to have somebody who can talk about the wine.
Is there ever a problem, like when? So this is slightly different, but when you've bought something, have you ever heard of the Koch brothers from America? The big wine. They're very big at wine collecting. They're multi-billionaires, but they said they had I think it was something like 1/8 of their inventory was fake. Like, have you ever bought something that's sort of been fake?
I've never had anything that I've suspected of being fake.
Yeah.
But I tend to be buying through. I'm not going through the grey market mostly. No. Sometimes you have to buy.
eBay.
Yeah, I'm not on eBay. No. But I do have some wine to sell. Do you have his phone number?
No, I do not. If I knew billionaires, but I've been seeing it. No, these are like proper billionaires, industrialists in America. Yeah. But no, it was just interesting because...
You said the Koch brothers.
K-O-C-H, writing it down.
K-O-C-H.
Charles,
okay, Charles. I've got a few cases you might like.
So what's next for Pied de Terre?
Well, we're sitting in it at the moment.
Yep.
This is the cookery experiential space. This used to be a bar, a lovely cocktail bar that took about 200 quid a week. Mostly me drinking Negronis. And what are we looking at? We're looking at a lovely big granite tabletop. It looks like a domestic kitchen. We've got Gagano appliances.
It's a beautiful domestic kitchen, yeah.
And we're going to be doing master classes here and an intimate evening with the chef.
Nice.
So we'll have be kicking off mid-November, table of 8, who will be entertained and cooked for by Asimakis.
Is he going to do like Greek souvlaki, or is it going to be like... What?
It's going to be the food that we do downstairs. Oh. Well, we want to up the ante.
Yeah.
I think this is the spot where we can get 2 stars.
Very intimate.
Yeah. So it'll only be 8 customers a night, and we're tagging it as Chef's Table by Asimakis. So if you're coming here and he's ill, we'll be cancelling it.
Okay. Wow.
It's going to be dinner with Asimakis.
A lot of pressure on Asimakis there.
Yeah, it is. Yeah. There's a lot of pressure on the business, actually.
Yeah, I can imagine.
But we have to change what we're doing to remain relevant.
And again, this is another one of those how you evolve, and I think a lot of people like this intimate dining,
Yes, it's very different.
Yeah. I was reading that Sat Baines, he has he's not the only one, but he has a bench in the kitchen. And it's just up for 4 people.
I wish we had a bench in the kitchen.
Really?
We would fill it every night of the week.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. So our next plan is saying what's in the future.
Yeah.
We had a bar up here. We have a restaurant. No. Our bar license is a proper bar license. We don't have to eat. We can have drinks.
That's cool.
But we never really had any
Get the most
take or attraction with it. So I want to move the bar down to the ground floor into the front room and get planning permission to open the front windows.
Nice.
So we can compete with the likes of the Charlotte Street Hotel.
Yeah.
And we can have maybe 18, 20 people sitting in nice, relaxed, comfy chairs, cocktail tables, drinks, an all-day barman, good wine offering, and 3 or 4 dishes that you can just have at the bar.
Nibbles. Yeah.
Little ceviche.
Nice.
Little foie gras torchon.
What's
not to love?
No, exactly.
So, and then that stage, the bar that you can see here, this tiny bar, which is the replacement of the larger bar, we'll change that into a wine cellar, and it'll become a wine experiential space.
What happened to the wine cellar that was there?
We moved that upstairs.
That's upstairs.
It broke me. We moved 3,000 bottles. It broke me.
You didn't have any wastage from wine? Or was
No.
that all right? Just
We didn't break anything.
Yeah, right.
But we had to physically move all of the wine from the first floor to an extended space on the second floor. And the Google document that charts where everything is, it's a beast.
Yeah.
So we had to move every item, reallocated into a new bin on the second floor. And now we're just going through this process of verifying. So we've started sweeping through the cellar, and we're halfway through, finding lots of things that we didn't know we had, and finding that we've got nothing of things that we thought we had.
Yeah, I can imagine.
So that's the future is moving the business to something slightly more experiential in terms of the wine space that we'll have, the kitchen space that we have here, and something that's more open on the street. So we have this wonderful discrete frontage that does us no favours. But you have to remember, when we rebuilt the restaurant in 2005, we were a 2-star Michelin restaurant booked up for 3-4 weeks ahead.
Yeah.
We didn't need visibility on the street.
Yeah.
Now we do, and we're going to put that right next year.
Also, a bit of natural daylight's nice as well, isn't it?
Yeah.
So, do you see yourself with any more locations at some point?
I'll never say no. Don't know, I'm a young man. but we are talking about different projects.
Yeah.
I do think that Le Tripier is a name that can come back on the scene in a different format. It's a restaurant name that has definitely has traction, and the fact that it had a Michelin Star for 9 years. We are actually talking to somebody out in New York about a project where the Pied de Terre and Asimakis' name could be attached to. And I've been approached by a very large Chinese corporation to do something in China.
Yeah.
It feels like an opportunity that you can't say no to.
Yeah.
I've been out to visit, and people ask me what it's like. It's weird and wonderful. It's a project that I really want to push the button on and do something with, because I think I'll sit back in 10 years' time and say, David should have done that.
Yeah.
But there's other little things as well. My consultancy business and my non-executive director's work.
You've got a lot of things bubbling away, haven't you?
Yeah, I work with an Irish Thai. There's a Thai restaurant chain called Camille. I think about 19 units in Ireland.
So is that fusion food? Is that both?
It's nothing to do with Irish food. It just happens to be an Irish.
It's a Thai restaurant.
It's a Thai restaurant owned by an Irish entrepreneur called Brodie Sweeney.
All right. So it's not like Thai food and soda bread then.
No soda bread in sight. But there's really good Thai food, and he's got 5 or 6 units he's opening in Croydon and Box Park.
Okay.
Yeah, I think this week. And I've been working with him for a couple of years. And I sit on the board of The Frog with Adam Handling, which is a fascinating. It's a fascinating job.
It's a very that's a very exciting up and coming restaurant brand at the moment, isn't it?
Yeah. I've been working for Adam for about 2 years on his board, and it's really exciting to work with him. It's a fascinating project, and it's very fast paced. And he's opened 3 very high profile restaurants in 2.5 years.
Wow. So, he's a young lad, and it's amazing that he does what he does. It's really impressive, really.
Yeah, there's a lot of energy there.
Yeah, a lot. So, what does your head in about the hospitality industry?
Oh, I think it's the lack of support that this industry gets generally from the government. Yeah, we have a government which I'm a born and bred conservative. I I can't vote Labour. I did vote for Tony. I did vote for Tony Blair because I just thought at the time we needed a change.
Yeah.
And I think there's a lot of Tories like me that might have done that.
Well, to be fair, he was pretty much a Tory.
Yes, he was in the middle ground. Yeah. I just don't see any support for industry, especially for our industry. There's nothing out there that the government are doing for us.
No.
It just feels like we're just taken for granted. I was raided by border control.
Really?
I got a call at 9:15 in the morning
Greeks.
saying, we've been tipped off that you're employing illegals. So I got this phone call at home. I got to the work. I got into the restaurant at 10 o'clock, and I was met by border control. I bet if I'd have called 999 and said I'm having the shit kicked out of me on Charlotte Street, I'd have a police response vehicle 24 hours later.
Yeah, that's a bit optimistic.
Yeah. I had 45 minutes later, I had the officers down here.
Wow.
They found nothing. They had 2 suspects, which came back to poor photocopying, numbers being smudged. That kind of disrespect. They come in and they barge into our business.
And there's no sort of apology after.
No apology. No. Just, we won't sue you. There'll be no fine.
Oh, like they did you a favour almost.
Yeah. The whole industry, government and all of its departments just seem to be conniving together to make us fail. And it's our best endeavours. We're working as hard as we can against what seems to be a government that is for a government that's for a business government. We have a business government that seems to me to be anti-business.
Yeah, it's
more interest. They're self-interest.
Yeah, I almost feel like they never really. It's almost like when they did that coalition with the
Libs.
Lib Dems. It's almost like they never picked themselves up afterwards. They just carried on being the same, and that. That period of austerity was just no one grows by constraining,
But our industry did.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, we did, regarded, because food is sexy, food is popular.
Was that just in London, do you think? Or?
No, I think it was across the country. Right. I do think it was across the country, but obviously London was the real engine house of it, and things that were popular here and concepts that worked well probably fed into the shires and into the north of the country. Yeah, the government needs to get their act together and get more
pro-business, don't they? And that doesn't have to be at the cost of the people. Like, I think that's the other thing as well. They always make out that it's pro-business versus pro-people, and it's not. And I was chatting to someone today I was chatting to Kate Nichols today from UK Hospitality, and she says the government needs to do better explaining to people what business actually does. Mm-hmm. I can't remember the figures that she gave me, but she told me that basically, I think the hospitality industry is probably the second or third contributor to the GDP.
Yeah.
And if people knew that, they probably wouldn't be so hard about business. But everyone just keeps saying, "Oh, it's right for the business people."
But the third largest employer.
Yeah.
It's crazy the amount of value we add to the GDP, to the economy.
5% of the GDP is from hospitality.
But we get nothing back.
No.
There's nothing. It's just. We're also, as an industry, not very connected at coming together to have a joined-up voice.
No, it's true.
But you would hope that the government would recognise the strength of what we've got and what the possibilities that we have.
I think with the government, and I think it's probably always been like this, they like to make out it's just now, but it's not. It's whoever screams the loudest gets heard. And if you've got an organised movement or a voice, they listen. But if you don't, they're not saying anything. Let's carry on and ignore them. That's my view.
You're probably right.
It's been known. It's been known for me to be right. Yeah.
Not often.
Not often.
Your pals tell me that.
Yeah, they'll tell me that too. So, what would your last meal be, or your favourite food?
Oh,
guilty pleasure, or whatever you want to call it.
Yeah, it's tricky. I've got so many favourites. I used to always love going back to Blackpool to visit Mum. I know, when we went back, she always made shepherd's pie.
Oh, okay, that's all right. I was going to say.
And her shepherd's pie it's just it's historic.
Yeah.
Miss that. A good tray of oysters.
Nice.
Oof, very nice.
Yeah.
a simple thing like a bacon sandwich on Warburton's white bread with
brown or red.
Brown, of course. Come on,
Oh,
you're mad.
just checking. Like.
But the bread has to be buttered with salty butter.
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
There are some people who say bread in a bacon sandwich doesn't need butter. Who's talking about need? I want salty butter with my bacon in my sandwich.
I don't need any of that, but I'll have it. Like, yes.
I have one of the best greasy spoons in town. It's called Andrew's on Grayson Road.
Okay.
It's right across from where I live. And I'll have like a little cheeky bacon and egg sandwich on the way into work from there.
Streaky or back bacon if you're making it at home.
Oh, at home it's always going to be streaky. Yeah. We have a fantastic butcher's on Theobald called McKenna's. And we go up there and it's just it's one of these butchers that has everything.
Bacon from the butcher is just like something else. Like, don't get me wrong. Like,
it's never seen a piece of plastic.
Oh, never. Like it's just so good. Like no water comes out of it. It's just so good. Yeah, I need some now. Tomorrow morning, go to the butcher's. Favourite holiday? Where would you go?
I've been very fortunate, been invited to a couple of.
Say Blackpool.
It's not going to be Blackpool. I've always been very fond of Blackpool. I love Blackpool.
Yeah.
I was brought up there. I love being by the sea, and I actually never really realised how much I liked being by the water until I moved to Oxford. Been invited to the Bernard Loiseau Culinary Foundation in Mauritius for a couple of years to judge. I kept waiting for them to tap on my shoulder to say, we found out you're nobody, mate. Sling your up. I had 2 years at this the Belmar Plage by the Constance Group, and it's amazing, the hospitality, the food, the wine, lovely. But the place I go mostly is we have a mobile home in Ireland, down in Wexford on the coast, my wife and I and the kids. And it is the only place that my wife says she can see that I've actually switched off.
Okay.
So that's it's at the caravan.
Nice.
Or as we just call it, the van.
Yeah, but when I've emailed you a few times, you've been like, "Oh, I'm just at the airport," and it's literally you can tell you've switched off because you're literally emailing me back from the airport. You're almost getting putting your foot back into work mode a little bit. Yeah. So, who has been your biggest inspiration? Well, it doesn't have to be. It can be who has inspired you. Look up to.
Over the years and where I am in my career, I have to say the person that put me where I am is Raymond Blanc.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, obviously I had the steer from Michael Truelove.
Yeah,
who was the chef who said, "You get yourself a job at the Manoir." But I went and worked for Raymond, and that 6-year apprenticeship is the foundation of who I am and what I do.
Yeah. You still see him now?
We own a business together. We own London Cocktail Clubs.
So you do still see each other?
Yeah. Not very often, but the occasional, the annual AGM, and hopefully the cocktail bars are going to be selling soon.
Yeah.
Fingers crossed. Anybody out there want to buy 10 bars?
Maybe that guy that I gave you his details, he might want them. I love how you're asking me.
Yeah, I'm asking the public. Go, hey, right to Lance at.
Let's all just chip in. So, what would your book recommendation be? And then I can let you be.
My book, my wife usually buys all my books for me.
Yeah.
And there's a couple of books that I found very, very interesting, both by a guy called Matthew Syed. There's Bounce, which is the theory of practice over talent. That nobody is truly talented; it's just the amount of practice they put in. Mm-hmm. And Black Box Thinking, what I've taken away from that is about small improvements, always looking at the mistakes that have been made and why they've been made and how we can get around not making the same mistake again. A lot of relevance back to the aviation and the medical world about mistakes that actually cost lives.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm talking about maybe a piece of cod that's overcooked or a dish that's gone to the wrong table. No one's died. No one's lost a limb.
No.
But I am always wanting to improve what we do, and I have found those two books very informative.
It's interesting because when you mention them, they struck with me, and it might be someone else that written them or read them or whatever, but I've heard about them, and they were saying about. So the first book is the book you mentioned about
the Bounce.
Yeah, the Bounce.
Theory of talent over theory of practice over talent.
And I think essentially what they call that is the 10,000 hour rule.
10,000 hours, yeah, exactly.
So, if someone does something for 10,000 hours, you put me downstairs in the kitchen, before you know it, after 10,000, 5, 6, then 10,000, I can do it.
It becomes intuitive. It's like Roger Federer is standing across from Andy Murray, and he can tell by the way Andy is standing, and about to serve, the way
he's got intuition. Yeah,
he knows where that ball's going before Andy hits it.
Yeah,
and that's why they've got that response, and it's about the 10,000 hours.
Yeah, yeah. You don't want. No one's born knowing how to play golf like Tiger Woods. You know, and I think that's the point, isn't it? He played and played and played.
I think maybe the only exception is probably someone like Amadeus, who clearly at 4 years old to be able to play the piano so brilliantly and to be such a musician.
There's probably some sort of autism going on there as well.
I was just going to say,
And I think like he's literally just zoned into that, and well done to him, because I couldn't do that. Yeah, if I was autistic, I'd have all the negative sides. But they were saying about
don't hug me.
But about the next book, which was about all those little changes, it was interesting because I read something similar to that, and they were talking about Korean Airlines, and Korean Airlines realised that they had to stop their pilots and sub-pilots, whatever you call it, from talking in Korean, because the way that the Korean language is built up is very hierarchical. How do you say it? Hierarchical.
Yeah, there you go.
Yes.
Yeah.
No, I probably still said it wrong. I'm going to get someone make fun of me. I know who that's going to be already. And I'll get a text saying, you can't even say hierarchical. Yeah. And basically they say that the way that it is that you would never, in Korean, the language isn't built to tell off your superior. Mm-hmm. It's very respectful. Yep. So if you're a sub-pilot and you see the main pilot do something wrong, no one behind you is going to say, "Oh, boss, like you can't do that, mate," or "What's going on here?" Because there's no language for that. So what they did, they switched everyone over to talking English or American, and then they noticed that.
I think American is officially English as well.
Yeah, I know. I don't know if they said it with a Texan accent.
That'll probably be the same. Pal will inform you on that later.
Yeah, good. Yeah, well, you just did as well. Yeah, but and they were saying like once they moved over to talking English, the errors just went away.
Cut through it.
Because now it's like, oh, boss, you can't do that, mate. Do this, do that. Like, steer for this. And it just changed everything. So, lots of...
They are interesting books. And anybody who's in the business world is wanting to improve the ethos about how the airlines watch every mistake and how you're forgiven a mistake if you confess to it.
Yeah, early on.
Yeah. You get it out there, you tell the aviation authority. If you don't tell them and they find out later, you're struck off as a pilot.
Yeah, because you could have just said it. Yeah. And the opposite to that was what you were saying about doctors.
Who hide the mistakes. Because my view on the national health is that anybody who has been served well by the national health, but not that well, perhaps there's an issue, they shouldn't be able to sue. Because there's no payment at point of having the treatment. And there should be, obviously they make mistakes, those mistakes should be owned up to, and there should be a fund that helps families to survive these mistakes.
The problem is it's just the litigation. It's just people are
keep it away from the lawyers. Stop the lawyers' fees.
Keep it in-house,
keep it in-house. You've got a way, you've had a stroke that was missed, you've got 3 children and an income. There's going to be a fund that's going to come in there and say, this is what you need to survive. Not like a £5 million claim.
No, just something to keep. And they were saying that in America they did this test, and I can't remember what state it was in. But basically they did a test, and it said with doctors, they said, why do patients sue? And after talking to lots of patients, they said, why did you sue? And they said, because the doctor never said sorry. Yeah. And then they said to the doctors, why didn't you say sorry? Because he said, my lawyer told me I'd be admission of guilt. So I can't say sorry. He wanted to say sorry, but how can I say sorry if I get sued and get struck off? So there was this circle, and they said, okay.
Vicious.
So they said, what if then we can allow you to say sorry, but it's not an admission of guilt, it's just you saying sorry, and they can't sue you for it. And they did this test, and apparently it worked wonders. I'm sure solicitors didn't like it.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, why would they?
Yeah. Well, exactly. Yeah. As we know, they like to make their money billable hours. So, well, David, it's been great. Thank you so much for your time.
It's been fun.
It has been really fun. I've really enjoyed it. Yeah, I've really enjoyed it. And
I'll believe it's just 2 hours has flown by.
Oh, everyone says that when they talk
I hope I haven't ripped you up over 2 hours. I know you were saying 2 hours is a long one.
No, it was good. Like, I enjoyed it. Yeah. So.
Excellent.
Yeah, but let's hope the listeners like it. That's the main thing. Yeah,
it's all in the edit.
Yeah, exactly. All in the edit. I don't really edit it, to be honest.
Oh, shit.
Maybe your champagne break.
Oh, shit.
All right, David. Thank you very much, mate.